So cloud computing is one of the emerging areas in business analysis these days. We see many organizations or many institutes moving to the cloud infrastructure. So why these things are happening, what are the benefits of cloud computing, what should be the role of business analyst in cloud computing domain, we would see all of them. Also, this training would be having a demonstration of how cloud computing works towards the end of these PPTs. So let us begin this session. To start with, the basics of cloud. Now, NIST. NIST stands for National Institute of Standards for Technology. It's an agency under the US Department of Commerce as a core foundation from which solutions are defined. So this is the organization or the agency who is responsible for establishing the basic level of standards for cloud computing related area. They define all the necessary frameworks, necessary regulatory guidelines, necessary sets of protocols. So anything that is added to this area has to go through a formal level of approval through this agency or the organization in terms of standardization. So whenever a new technology is implemented or is introduced to the market, a governing body has to be there in order to regularize what all things are happening in that technology, or what all things could be added further in terms of enhancing that technology or improving that technology. So these governing body play a very important role in terms of defining the standards and the basic set of protocols or basic set of regulation needed for introducing a new technology. So NIST is the agency which is responsible for doing the standardization and your governance activities of cloud computing. So cloud computing is a model for enabling convenient on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computing resources. For example, networks, servers, storage applications, and services that can be rapidly provisioned and released with minimal management effort or service provider interaction. So this cloud model promotes availability and is composed of 5 essential characteristics: 3 service model and 4 deployment model. We would independently go through this 5 essential characteristics, the service models and the deployment models. So before going to these characteristics or the service model and deployment model, so what is cloud? So cloud is nothing but a environment, or I would say a virtual environment, which is responsible for facilitating its user in terms of infrastructure, in terms of software component management, in terms of platform services. So there are different services which a cloud environment offers to a particular organization, to an individual, or to a particular let's say entity, university. Most of these private firms or non-profit firms are opting for cloud services. The reason behind them is it's easier to implement a cloud-based solution, and at the same time it's very cost effective. So imagine a scenario 10 years ago, whenever you had to host an application, you had to find a host provider, domain provider, or infrastructure provider. So these all activities took a huge amount of time in terms of effort, in terms of monetization. There were huge efforts involved in this. Now what cloud computing did to this is they streamlined the process and they started offering this granular services in one bouquet of services. So you just subscribe it, or you just go as per your need. You just have to pay a subscription amount, monthly or yearly, or if you don't wish to pay a subscription amount, you can go by pay as you go model, wherein all your uh, all of the services which you avail is metered, and towards the end of the month you get a metered billing for it. So there's so much flexibility in terms of using the services. So that is what cloud computing offered to its customer. At the same time, in order to ensure that the customer is not cheated, or the customer is not annoyed in terms of availing the services, they offered some sort of uh, performance services like high time availability, then scalability, reliability, security. So all these services were part of their offering. So depending on what services you are availing and what is your need, you could avail any of these services from a bouquet of services which your cloud provider is offering. To move on to the next part, so these are the 5 essential characteristics of cloud computing. So the first characteristic is on-demand self-service. So this means that cloud computing is self-service and available all of the time. Like I said, there is no human resource involved in a configuration of any cloud environment. So they just configure the servers, and the availability is auto-computed basis on some algorithm or basis on some automated scripts, batch jobs. So that ensures that the on-demand service is available at all time. Now, when I say at all time, it ensures or it guarantees that 99.99% of the time it would be available to you. So imagine a scenario that you are running an online business, and any downtime of 1 hour would heavily impact your business. So cloud computing would ensure, or the cloud environment would ensure, that is the online business is not impacted due to unavailability of the service. If one a server is not responding immediately, the request or the um, the requests that are coming out of one particular area would be moved to the next available server. So this is how the server pooling happens, or the request pooling happens in cloud. If one particular component is not functioning, all the requests that are coming to that particular component would be rerouted to the other components. The next characteristic is broad network access. So this computing capabilities are accessible via the network rather than through hard cables, and can be accessed by any relevant client. The client could be PC, mobile phone, tablet, etc. So whatever services the cloud is offering, they are available via network. So there is no physical cable or physical routers, or those things are involved, unlike what is to happen 10 years ago. So that thing is eliminated. The third characteristic is resource pooling. So when an organization doesn't own computing resources exclusively for the use of specific application, those resources become available for use by other organization and application. So resources can be dynamically allocated and reassigned based on changing consumer demands. So there are different flavors on basis on which cloud environment is hosted. Some applications are hosted on shared cloud, some applications are hosted on private cloud. So if it's a shared cloud, so if let's say there are 5 different e-stores or e-commerce website hosted on one shared cloud. So out of those 5 e-commerce website, only 4 are I mean 4 of them are having very less demand, or they do not do that much business, but the 5th one is doing lots of business. So whatever capacity is remain from this 4 e-commerce website would be automatically transferred to the 5th website, which is hosted in the shared cloud. That means the shared cloud apart from exhausting their own quota of taking the request, they can also be take benefit of the quota which are assigned to these 4 e-commerce websites. So when I say quota, that means the number of requests that could be entertained in a particular cloud environment. So in this case, if there are 5 e-commerce websites, let's say there are 100 requests, in a particular day, it is ensured that per e-commerce website only 100 requests could be entertained. So these 4 e-commerce website, maybe they would be having 50-50 requests each. So still 200 requests are pending. So those 200 requests would be assigned to the 5th e-commerce website, which is encountering a heavy traffic at that point of time. So that's the benefit of resource pooling. Now 4th is rapid elasticity. So when there's a sudden spike in the volume of demand for an application, it should continue to run quickly and smoothly through rapid allocation of resources behind the scene without the need of human intervention. Like I said, the example which I stated earlier, that if some available resources are there, that would be reassigned to the website which is in demand of that resources. Now a human or a physical human cannot do this resource allocation, dynamic allocation of the resources. So it needs a highly optimized algorithm. So those kind of algorithms are provided in your cloud environment. The last point is measured service. So this implicit in the definition of cloud is that someone has to pay for all of this, rather than payment being for the purchase of equipment for a data center. The payment is for actual usage for a number of server, processor cores, terabytes of data, the amount of bandwidth used for whatever else is relevant to the service. Now, like I said, there is no physical components involved over here. There won't be any physical servers that you would be setting up, or the CPU that you would be setting up, but all of this infrastructure is provided by your cloud service provider. So you are using the cloud services, so you gotta pay for it. The payment would be in terms of usage. How much servers have you used, how many processors your request consumed, how many terabytes of data has been transferred. So you will be billed basis on these factors. Now this billing could be as per pay as you go model, or could be a subscription based model. So anything that exceeds your subscription plan would be charged to you separately in your bill. So that's the huge advantage of using cloud computing. So you need not to set up a physical infrastructure, you just use it and pay for it. So these were the 5 characteristics of cloud. Now let's examine the service models. So these are the 3 service models that are available on cloud. So first service model is SaaS. SaaS stands for software as a service. It provides functionality for end users, often with a per license structure and will relatively minimal customization of the front end. The vendor runs everything. So software as a service, like your Microsoft Office, G Suite, WordPress. So these are examples of software as a service. So they offer their software, they have their own set of features, you just pay for that software and you use it. So you cannot do any customizations over here. So whatever functionality which are available out of the box, you have to use those functionality. So you cannot add a custom component to your Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel. For example, if you are using Microsoft Office 365, you cannot add any macros, additional macros, or additional pivots, additional components to that particular Microsoft Office 365 services. So if you want to add it, then you have to pay for it extra. Okay, so this is so these all softwares are based on pay as you go model or subscription based model, which varies from 1 year to 2 years or 3 years depending on your subscription. The next service model is platform as a service, that is PaaS. So it provides a platform upon which application can be written and used. So the vendor runs infrastructure, middleware and operating system, and you manage your own application. For example, your Google Play Store, Windows App Store. So these are infrastructure, or I'm sorry, these are the platforms provided by Google and Microsoft. You as a user, you develop your application, host it over there, and all of the infrastructure related things, the middleware, the operating system needs would be taken care of by the platform provider like your Google or Microsoft. The third service is IaaS, that is Infrastructure as a Service. This provides core infrastructure as a utility service. So the vendor runs infrastructure only. You manage everything else. For example, Amazon Web Services. They only run the infrastructure, the web services. So apart from that, if you want to host your application, if you want to compile your application, or you want to add a database, that is something that you need to take care of. Amazon won't be responsible for any other activities out there. So they would only be providing you the infrastructure. So this way, these three are the predominant service model which are available in cloud computing as of today. So there are of course cases when these things are used in a hybrid model. So that is something depends on your need, how you could leverage the offerings of this models and how you customize it as per your needs. Now coming to the deployment model. So there are four kinds of deployment models in cloud. One is your private cloud, then there is second one is your public cloud, then there is community cloud, and then there is hybrid cloud. So let's examine one by one. So private cloud, a private cloud is owned by a single organization. So private cloud enables an organization to use cloud computing technology as a means of centralizing access to its IT resources by different parts, locations, or departments of the organization. When a private cloud exists as a controlled environment, the problem described in the risk and challenges section do not tend to apply. So the use of a private cloud can change how organizational and trust boundaries are defined and applied. The actual administration of a private cloud environment may be carried out by internal or outsourced staff. So private cloud is an area wherein only your organizational assets or your organizational software component would be deployed. No other organization should be is allowed to deploy their solution over there. So that would be private to that particular organization. Of course there would be a huge subscription amount that organization needs to pay in order to avail the private cloud service. So in that particular environment, other organizations are not allowed to host their application or run their application. So in order to build the trust factor, it is very important that the organization who is who has requested for this private cloud facility have their own internal staff or their own trusted outsourced stuff. So this is a basic consideration over here. In order to build the trust boundaries, they would be having their internal staff or outsourced staff who would be taking care of their particular private cloud. So that is something one has to look forward for. Now coming to the public cloud, a public cloud is a publicly accessible cloud environment owned by a third-party cloud provider. The IT resources on public cloud are usually provisioned via the previously described cloud delivery models and are generally offered to cloud consumers at a cost or are commercialized via other avenues such as advertising. The cloud provider is responsible for creation and ongoing maintenance of the public cloud and its IT resources. Many of the scenarios and architectures explored in upcoming chapters involve public clouds and the relationship between the providers and consumers of IT resources via public clouds. So public cloud is a place wherein multiple organizations can host their applications. So all the maintenance stuffs or all the service stuff would be taken care of by the public cloud provider who is providing that services. Unlike private cloud, wherein all the maintenance and operations activity would be taken care of by the organization who is has secured that private area in that particular cloud, public cloud, the maintenance and operational activities would be taken care of by the cloud provider. In private cloud, cloud provider won't be taking this responsibility. It's the organization's responsibility who is hosting that application. So these are the basic set of differences between public cloud and private cloud. Now coming to community cloud. So the community cloud is similar to public cloud, except that its access is limited to a specific community of cloud consumers. So the community cloud may be jointly owned by the community members or by a third party cloud provider that provisions a public cloud with limited access. The consumers of the community typically share the responsibility for defining and evolving the community cloud. Membership in the community does not necessarily guarantee access to or control of all the cloud's IT resources. Parties outside the communities are generally not granted access unless allowed by the community. So all your community websites, let's say for example the Wikipedia. So in Wikipedia or WikiLeaks, there's a community defined who governs the content over there. So you cannot post any offensive or any derogatory post or derogatory articles over there. So that is governed by the community. So the community, the Wikipedia community is responsible for taking care of monitoring all the contents that are uploaded on that particular website. So that is again an example of community cloud, wherein the members would be governing the content of that particular thing. So it is there for a purpose. Then there is IMDb community, which is focused only on the movie databases. Then there are different Salesforce community who is focused on your cloud computing part. Then there's Oracle community. So these community cloud, the members of the community cloud would be responsible for handling, maintaining and managing the contents. So anyone else outside of the community is not allowed to do any kind of post or any kind of manipulation over there. So this is an addition to the public cloud, wherein the members are configured along with the public cloud, who would be basically monitoring and tracking the what I would say, the content of that particular community, in order to ensure that the community is not offended in any way, or there is no such explicit or derogatory contents available over there. Now coming to the fourth flavor, that is hybrid cloud. So a hybrid cloud is a cloud environment comprised of two or more different cloud deployment models. For example, a cloud consumer may choose to deploy cloud services processing sensitive data to a private cloud and other less sensitive cloud services to a public cloud. The result of this combination is a hybrid deployment model. Like I said, there are various level of information available. There are sensitive information, there are insensitive information. So all this sensitive information can be moved to a private cloud, and all the insensitive information can be hosted in a public cloud. For example, your demographic information, name, telephone number, email address, that could be hosted in your private cloud, and your information like what you are doing today, what is your area of interest, what are your hobbies, those all information could be hosted on a public cloud. So this way a hybrid solution could be adopted when a solution is deployed in cloud environment. So this is an example of pictorial representation of your private cloud. So this is your cloud service consumer, and this is your private cloud. Here is your cloud services. Here is your organization. So your organization has some cloud service consumer which is accessing these cloud services which are hosted in a private cloud. Now this is a public cloud. So this is your organization, and these are the cloud providers like Google, Zoho, Yahoo, Salesforce, Microsoft, Amazon, Rackspace. These are your cloud providers, and your organization is using this public cloud. Now this is a hybrid cloud. So this is your cloud service consumer. Some of the data is hosted in your public cloud and some of the data is hosted in your private cloud. So this is the database of public cloud data, and this is your database of private cloud data, and this is the service which you are, as a consumer, you are accessing. Now coming to community cloud, so this is an organization. These are their database server, these are the services, these are the databases, and you are accessing the services via community. Now roles within cloud. So we have seen the service model, the deployment model, the 5 characteristics. Now this is the 4th topic, that is what are the typical roles within cloud. So these are just indicative roles. There are actually many more roles. So as of now we would concentrate on these 4 roles. So we have cloud provider, cloud consumer, cloud service owner, and cloud resource administrator. So the cloud provider, the organization that provides cloud-based IT resources, is the cloud provider. When assuming the role of cloud provider, an organization is responsible for making cloud services available to cloud consumer as per agreed upon SLAs. So your Amazon, Google, Microsoft, they are all your cloud providers. So those are the organization who would basically take care of the SLAs and the necessary aspects that are needed in terms of providing cloud services. Now then there are cloud consumer. A cloud consumer is an organization or a human that has a formal contract or agreement with the cloud provider to use IT resources made available by the cloud provider. Specifically, the cloud consumer uses a cloud service consumer to access a cloud service. So I as an organization or you as an individual are considered as cloud consumer who would be using the cloud provider services. So these are the 2 roles, the 2 important, critical and basic roles, I would say. Then there is cloud service owner. The person or organization that legally owns a cloud service is called a cloud service owner. For example, your Microsoft or Amazon, they are also the cloud provider and they are also the cloud service owner. Now when I say service, so service would be having some name like Amazon Web Service. Now when I say cloud provider, it is just the company who is offering the cloud provider. When I say cloud service owner, so what that company is offering? Amazon Web Service, or Google is offering some Google services. So this is the name of the service. So who is the owner of that service? Google or your Amazon. Okay, so that's how it is differentiated from cloud provider and cloud service owner. Next comes your cloud resource administrator. So a cloud resource administrator is a person or organization responsible for administering a cloud-based IT resource, including cloud services. So the cloud resource administrator can be or belong to the cloud consumer or cloud provider of the cloud within which the cloud service resides. Alternatively, it can be or belong to a third-party organization contracted to administer the cloud-based IT resources. So whenever you are billing your customer, so you need to have a cloud resource administrator. This is basically a physical human being who monitors the resources and tracks which all things are valid requests. For example, if I had to give you, for example, let's say the public databases like Experian, LexisNexis. So as a organization, I want to pull a report from them. Let's say, let me pull a criminal report from them. So per report it costs 750 7.95 USD. So in order to pay them 7.95 USD, it's a basic expectation that whatever report I am pulling, that is complete. If there are I'm making a request for a report and the report is delivered to me incorrectly, so at that point of time I am not liable to pay 7.95 USD. I won't be paying it. So until and unless the report is complete, 100% accurate, then only I would be paying it. So such kind of complete and incomplete request and made and accepted through cloud would be monitored by this cloud resource administrator. So the cloud service consumer would be paying for only those reports or only those requests which has been completed. For incomplete requests, they won't be charged or they won't be billed. So these things would be taken care of by Cloud Resource Administrator through a automated software. So these are the computing patterns within cloud, like there is automated administration, then there is automatically defined parameter, there is bare metal provisioning, broad access, centralized remote administration, cloud authentication gateway, cloud data breach protection, cloud denial of service protection, cloud key management, cloud resource access control, cloud storage device masking, cloud virtual machine platform encryption, then collaborating monitoring, and logging, pay-as-you-go model, dynamic scalability. So these are some of the patterns or some of the offerings by cloud. These are just an indicative list. There are many more patterns which are available in cloud these days. So you need to understand as a business analyst, what is your computing pattern, what are the service model that you have adopted for, what are the deployment strategy that you need to adopt, that is finalized. Basis on that, you could go with your analysis. So who manages what in cloud? So the blue legend indicates the business team's accountability, and the green legend indicates the cloud vendor accountability. So in infrastructure as a service, your application, data, runtime, middleware, operating system is something accountable to your business team, and your virtualization, server, storage, networking is an accountability of your cloud vendor. Cloud vendor means Google, Amazon, or your any cloud provider, Salesforce or of that kind. And business team means your organization, any organization, XYZ. Okay, so if you are opting for a platform as a service, then your only application is data. Application and data is your accountability. Rest all is the accountability of your cloud vendor. And if you are going for software as a service, everything is accountable of your cloud vendor, like Microsoft Office 365. So I hope you enjoyed the theory part. Let us move on towards the hands-on part. So you could see that their services are based on number of users they are the support to the number of users they are providing. For $10 a month, you could see only 10 users would be supported. For $75 a month, 15 users. For 25, 150. For 50 users, for 100 users, the price increases. And for a huge organization wherein there are 2000 users, it would be $1,500 a month. So you could also bill your customer not on basis of subscription, but basis on how many numbers of users you would be using. So they too have two options. One is your cloud hosted option, wherein you would only be uploading your content like wordpress.com. Then there is a solution of self-hosted, wherein you would be configuring everything. So they won't be responsible, they would only give you an infrastructure. So here they would giving you the software over cloud. You just select your plan and you are good to go. So this way, every organization these days, so these are called as on-demand services these days. Okay, so every organization you see today would be having these kind of offerings for you. Either it would be self-hosted app or it would be cloud-hosted app. Therein they would be having the billing plan as per your needs or as per your requirement. So these cloud-hosted apps are called as on-demand services. So whenever you see the word on demand, it's basically referring to cloud computing. In the world of software industry.